Now we're going to create the categories section. So inside of the pages folder, let's create a new file called categories.php. Inside of the categories.php, what we're going to do, let's open products.php, copy the entire content and paste inside of the categories.php. Now close products, and we can actually close the browser now. If we scroll right to the top, we need to replace all of these products before the / in require once function to categories, basically, because that's going to be our new folder. So if you have find and replace, use this and simply replace all of them. Otherwise, you will have to replace all of these manually. Now I've replaced them already. As you can see, now we will have add, we will have added, we'll have added failed, we won't have added no upload, so we can remove this one. The same about edited no upload, remove, and list will be the same. So we can now close our categories.php, which is done. If we open a browser, we create the, actually let's duplicate the products folder, basically, copy and paste if you can, and obviously we need to rename this folder to categories. Open this folder, and we will have to remove the two files which are basically no upload ones, so move to trash both of them. Now let's move to the next video when we will be working with our list.php inside of the categories section. Okay, let's open the list.php inside of the categories folder. If we scroll right to the top, obviously we won't be using a search from here, as there's no need really. We go into categories normally, there's just a few. Unless you want to use it exactly the same way as we've done in the previous video. Now we have catalog, and we will be looking at a different thing here. So if we will be using paging. So if we leave this one, except products, we're going to have categories now. So if we create this array first, equals, and now object catalog, it's best to copy, randomly type to avoid any misspellings, get categories. Okay, so we have all these categories, we're passing them to the paging, to our paging class, basically. Then we get all of the rows ready, admin. So our paging is done. Now heading, we need to change from products to categories. Obviously form, search form is going to be removed, so we can get rid of this. We can remove of this divider as well. Add new will be called new category now, and page equal will be categories. Then action add stays as it was. Okay, then we have if is an empty rows. We will have only 3 columns. So first one will be, rather than product, it will be category. We will have remove and we will have edit the way it is. So we go a little bit lower. Obviously need to, sorry, not rows, it's going to be as category. Okay, and now we obviously remove this. ID is not going to be ID because we don't need ID. We need the name though. So if we remove the first row completely, we have encode helper encode HTML category name, which is fine. Then we have remove button as well, which basically removes the will remove the category. We have obviously have to remove the replace the page products with categories here, and remove ID as well. Only not product. It's going to be product category ID, and the same here. Rather than products, we'll have to have categories. Okay, edit. That's all 5. Paging is done. Else we will simply have one message, because obviously we're not using search here, so we don't have to differentiate between the two. Okay, and now closing PHP tag right here. So if there aren't any records, there will be simply there are currently no categories created. Okay, so that seemed to be all fine. And I think we are actually ready with this page. If we save it, go back to our browser, click on categories. Hey, here are our categories. New category, if we click, is obviously the content of the products page, as we copied these pages. If you have remove, again, it's products and edit. It's also going to the right page. It's just basically having the product's content. So let's move to the next video and have a look at the other new category page. So now we're going to be creating a page where you can actually add the new category. So inside of the categories folder, if we click on add, we will keep the form instance and valid instance. Now we will assign the expected will only be one field, which will be name, and the same will apply to our required, as it's the only field which we'll be using here. We can put them a little bit higher. Now we don't need all these categories here, so obviously we can remove these categories. We will, however, need the catalog object, so we keep it. But I think we can move it to after if is post rather than keeping it here. Okay, so if it's post, this is when we're going to be doing all this. Without this, we obviously don't need this object, so that's fine. Let's start with the new method actually. So we're going to check if and the name of the object catalog, duplicate category. We're going to check if the category with this name is already created. So object form get post name. And actually what we could do, we could get this one and assign it to the variable. It's going to be easier than name equals object form get post name. So we are comparing this name. If it's true, which means if the category already exists, then we object valid add to errors, and we're going to add name duplicate. And obviously if we open our classes folder and our validation class, we need to add this index to the, we have name already here, please provide a name, so we can use this one, but obviously we need this index for name duplicate. We can put this name is already taken. Okay, and obviously no comma after the last one, so we can save and close our validation class. After this, actually, let's move this expected and required right at the top after the if is post condition. Okay, after this we check in if obviously everything is valid. Then we can add category rather than add product. It's going to be add category. And we will post, we'll simply send this parameter here, which is the name basically of the category itself. Now we can remove all these upload statements. So let's remove all this. Redirect where we want them to be redirected. Obviously admin, everything stays exactly the same as get current URL. We already recognize whether it's categories, products, or any other section. So this may stay the way it is. And it will be added failed as well, so that's fine. Now, if it's been added, we only going to copy this one as well, paste it here. If it's been added successfully, I'm going to close this browser. Then obviously we want to redirect them to add it. Now, in the next video, we're going to amend our form here as well. So first thing we need to change, obviously, is our heading, which will be categories. Add. We don't need enc type as we're not uploading any files to the server, so that can go. Now the first one will be name, and obviously we need to display name here as well of the category. Then we will have our input. It's not going to be select, so we can remove all this. Let's leave the validate here. Let's copy this input from the second row, and we can actually remove all these rows down to the one with the submit button, because we only have one field here. And let's paste it under our validation message, and it is name as well, so we don't have to change anything here basically. Get sticky text is fine. FLD as well. I'm just going to put on a new line so it doesn't go so much to the left. That seemed to be fine. Obviously we're going to display two validation messages. One will be for the name and the other one will be for the duplicate name. So let's copy this index name here. Duplicate name. Okay, name duplicate. So that's all fine. Our form is actually done, I would say. Now if we scroll up, you may remember we've created this duplicate category. We call this a duplicate category method inside of the object catalog. So if we open our catalog class, let's close the browser, scroll down, we keep products here underneath, so maybe we should put this duplicate category together with the categories. Okay, after get category, then let's create a few new lines and start with public function duplicate category, and we take in name and ID by null, by default null as well. We're going to assign null to name as well, but we will only check if is an empty name, because when you're adding, we obviously don't have any ID, but when we will be editing, then we have to exclude this ID from the statement. Because let's say you're updating a record of category called books, and then if you simply click on update without changing anything, it would give you the message that obviously this record already exists. But if you say exclude this ID of this specific record, then obviously it's going to check all other records but not the one you're updating. Anyway, I'm going to show you now how it's going to work. So SQL equals select all from, let me look at this, underscore table, where name equals, and then single quote and concatenating with this db escape name, concatenating with single quote. Now we finish the statement, and we check basically we concatenate it only if there is a value assigned to the ID. So is an empty ID, we continue with and ID doesn't equal, and then obviously concatenation with this db escape ID, and that's it. Then we otherwise null, so obviously we don't add anything to a SQL statement otherwise. Let's put actually on a new line so that we can read it a little bit better. So basically if ID isn't empty, then we add this to the statement, otherwise we don't add anything, and this is going to be the only statement which will be executed. Okay, now we simply return this db fetch 1, and we pass SQL as parameter. We can obviously return false if name is empty. Okay, so we have duplicate category. Now ads file is practically finished. So if we go back to our page, click on new category, if we click on add, we have please provide a name, because obviously we didn't provide anything. If we provide a new name, test category, and click on add, we've got some error here, catalog add category, undefined method. So if we go back to our file, as you can see, we're calling add category method here. So again, we go to the catalog, let's create this method right after the get category before the one we've just created. So if we create a few new lines, and let's move to the next video. We have to split this video actually rather than having large files to watch. Let's move to the next video and create this function there. Okay, so now we are looking at public function add category, and we're taking the name of the category, by default null obviously. We check if is an empty name, then SQL will be insert into this underscore table, and we're going to be inserting just name, now values, so now it's just a single quote, and concatenation with this db escape name, then concatenate single quote and closing bracket, and then after the double quote semicolon. Now return this db query, and we pass our SQL as parameter. So that's our add category. If we go back to our browser, refresh the page, now As you can see, it displays products because we still didn't update all these confirmation pages, but it's been added. If we go back, if we click on go back, obviously it's going to take us to the categories list. As you can see, our test category is now displayed here. If we go to the front end, refresh the page, test category has also been added. Obviously there's no products. There are no products assigned to this category yet. So it's nicely, the script is already creating the categories. Now obviously all the confirmation messages. So if we close our catalog, we close our add.php, open a browser, go back to our categories folder, added, failed, added. For the added, obviously we need to change categories in a header. The new record has been added successfully. Go back to the list of categories. We don't have to be worry about the URL, as it's automatically generated by the URL get current URL method, so that's all fine. Let's copy the name, and obviously categories add. There was a problem adding this record. Please contact administrator. That's all fine. So we are all done with adding new records. Let's move to the next video and have a look at how can we edit category. Okay, so now we opening edit.php. We do need ID, so we again keep the same few lines. Then we have catalog. We will check for the product as well. So we get the only thing is obviously it's not going to be a product this time. It's going to be category equals catalog get, and it's going to be category. Okay, by ID, and obviously we check if is an empty category. Now we have our form and validation. We don't need our categories here. That's all fine. Now if we got is post name, which is all good. We only going to be looking for a name as well. So expected array should only have name, and required field and required array, sorry, it should also have name only. Then we check if is valid. We will check for object catalog if is duplicate category, as we've done before. Only this time, rather than passing obviously the post, we will get the value from the variable which we're going to create. So name equals object form get post name, and we're going to use the name of this variable here. And we do pass second parameter ID because we want to exclude this specific record from the search. Then obviously upload goes off completely. We are redirecting to edited failed, which is all good. And obviously, actually this is going to be a little bit further. We're first checking if it's duplicate, and if it is duplicate, we do object valid. We add into add to errors name duplicate, as we've done previously as well. So the syntax is already inside of the validation class. Now we are checking if, actually this should be in a different place. If we use it like, if we use it, we cut it actually, and then we check it after the is post, so that before the is valid. Then if it's valid, then we're going to check if object catalog update category method, which we'll create in the next video. Object, actually we've got a name now, so name, and we also need to pass ID, very similar to our duplicate category, as you can see, the same parameters. So if we've updated the record successfully, then we will redirect them to the edited page. Otherwise it's going to be edit failed. So that's all fine. If we scroll down, have a look at this file, we obviously need to amend this heading here, which is categories. We can remove this enc type, multi-part, which is fine. We can remove this category. We can keep name the way it is actually, except obviously we've got rather than product name as a second parameter, it's going to be category now, category name. So if we scroll down and replace this product name for the sticky text method, that all should be fine. And obviously after this name we can remove all the other ones and only keep the submit button, which will be update, and a footer, which is fine. Okay, let's move to the next video. We're going to be looking at update category method. One thing before we start creating this update category, which we can copy by now as well, we obviously need to display another one here, validation message basically, which is going to display validation message for the duplicate of the name. So echo object validate name underscore duplicate. Okay, so that's all fine. Now if we open our browser, go to our catalog class, you can close the browser, let's scroll down a little bit. We have add category. Let's now create update category. So after add category, a few new lines, scroll up, and we start with public function update category. We take two parameters, name equals null by default and ID equals null by default as well. Statement very similar to this one. So if we copy this is an empty name, rather than type it, and we also add and is an empty ID. These two conditions have to be met. So, and if any of them isn't true, then return false. Okay, and now we start with SQL equals update this underscore table. We're going to go for set name equals and single quote and concatenating with this db escape name, and then we have where statement id equals single quote this db escape id concatenate with a single quote semicolon after double quote, then return this db query and SQL as parameter. We can now save the file, go back to the edit page, and I think that's everything that we need because all the other methods were already created. So if we save the file, go back to our editor, click on the edit against our test category. As you can see, it's still here. If we click on update, we are redirected to the edited page. Obviously we need to change a few things, but that's going to happen in the next video. Then edit, if we change to another test category and hit update, now go back, it did update it, and obviously because it's displaying by the name, so I click on the business link, because it's displayed in the ascending order of the name, obviously it's now actually on the first position. So that's everything about editing pages, nearly everything, because we obviously need to update all of these confirmation pages, which we actually can do straight away. So rather than putting this onto the next video, if we close our edit.php file, open our browser, open our edited field and edit it. In edited, we obviously need to change products to categories, and this the record has been updated successfully. Go back to the list of categories. We can close this one. Let's actually copy this H1, then remove categories here, edit, problem updating this record, contact administrator. It's always easier to use obviously keyword like record or something like this because you can keep it for all other pages as well. So this is why I've used it here as well. So we can close now edited field. We are done with editing. The last one is obviously remove a category. So let's have a look at this in the next video. So now let's open a remove.php inside of the categories folder. We have some content here already from the previous chapter. We keep ID and we keep isn't empty. We need new catalog, and we won't be needing product obviously because we're talking about catalog basic categories now. But we will need categories. So category equals, let's copy the name of the object, get category, and we pass this ID, and then obviously we check if is an empty category. If it is an empty, we create the URL, which is basically exactly the same way as before. Then we check for the URL parameter, which is the remove one. If is an empty, remove. We will want to remove not product but category this time, method which we'll create in just a second as well. And obviously we want to remove all this from the current URL and redirect the user to the list of pages, list of categories, obviously. So all this can stay the way it is. Now obviously here in the heading we need to change this to categories, and all the remaining bits can stay the way they are, as it's very obviously general kind of information. Okay, so now this is done. Let's copy remove category and open our browser, go to our catalog file again. We want to remove it. Let's put inside in between actually after duplicate category, if we put this new method and we call it public function remove category. This one will take one parameter, which is basically ID of the category, by default null. So if isn't empty ID, then SQL, and between the double quotes, delete from this underscore table where ID equals, and then single quote concatenating with this db escape, and we have ID concatenating with single quote semicolon right at the end, and then this db query SQL. Okay, and if empty, return false. Okay, so our remove category is now done. We can save this file and save our remove.php. If we go back to our browser, click on remove link, we've got categories remove. Are you sure you want to remove this record? There's none. If we click on no, it takes us back. But if we click on yes, it removes our category, and obviously we are left with the only ones which were there before. So our categories section is now finished. Let's move to the orders one.